Hello guys, it is me Seamus back with another video. In today's video, we're going to be doing the third interview for Five Nights at Freddy's Reimagined, and we are going to be talking with Nero Raven on how he does his story crafting and what we can expect for this game. This is probably going to be a little bit of a longer one, but not too long, because the last one was about 20 minutes, but we'll see what we can do with this. So, how are you doing, Raven?
I'm doing alright. I woke up about like 30 minutes ago to get ready for this, so my voice is definitely not fully awake yet.
Yeah, you're good. So, let's see. So, we have a lot of questions here. A lot of people ask this stuff casually, and we'll just go through it. So, what is your main goal with developing this game? You know, like, what's your main
Honestly, just to try to get a story of FNAF that's kind of like more in your face and easier to follow for new people, because I have a couple friends who are getting back into it, and all this stuff, like, from FNAF 1 to now, there's so many new concepts and things that's like, it's so hard to get back into, so it's like I want to craft that story to make it easier to understand without delving too deep into like a theory. I just want more canon things with maybe some theory aspects in it to try to piece things together.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, because that's kind of what I was going for too with it. So these are some questions that we kind of ask everyone. So what has been your hardest part of developing this game? Like, what was a low point or a part where you were having a lot of trouble? Like, it could be like when someone bothered us, or if you're just having like writer's block. Like, that's a good example. Like,
Honestly, the funniest bit, there's really no people that have bothered me or really anything. It's more or less the fact just making sure that the ideas that I'm trying to put forth get like translated and design in the game as well. Because like I also want things like design and things like that to kind of also tell a story. So to make sure that like those designs are also kind of translated, that's kind of like been the hardest part, because it's just really intensive, I guess, to make sure that really gets into the game.
and that's a good point, because I've tried multiple times to just make the perfect images for the games on just what I want to make, and I'm just like, it's not just quite right yet, and I have to keep remaking it constantly, and that can be tiresome. But like, if I don't get one thing right, like, I feel like I'll get like this OCD thing where it needs to be perfect. Like, because if Bonnie is a little too tall or something, just like, I'll look at it and it'll just like bug me out while I'm playing the demo. And it's just stuff like that. But like, what are you aiming for on story crafting for this game?
For my thoughts on the story crafting?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on it? Like, do you enjoy doing it?
Oh yeah, I enjoy it. For my first ever really project like this, I really enjoy it. It's kind of a way to really like see, one, if the theories I put on YouTube even can apply to FNAF, and like gameplay wise, story wise, things like that. And it's also just cool to see what other people think of it, like as I'm writing it as well. It's a joy.
Yeah, I think the reason I cut out is because I had push to talk on, and I might have like messed it up, because I do that sometimes.
That makes sense.
So, what's your brain when it comes to story crafting? What's your thought loop? Like, what do you think of when you're trying to come up with ideas? Like, what goes on in your head, kind of like with that, like trying to convey things into certain imagery or gameplay wise?
So what I do first is like, I think story-wise, like we're doing FNAF 1 currently, and what I think with that is like, what are all the things that we suspect or know is going on in FNAF 1, and is there any way that I can make it work as like a story? Like, for example, some FNAF 4 aspects maybe, or other aspects that may be present, to try and see if they work and kind of try to implement it and see if it sticks. And if it doesn't stick, it's either toned down or removed.
That's a good way to put it, because yeah, like, I feel like for this game, I feel like we can get really wild with Easter eggs, because in FNAF 1 I feel like Scott, like, there were some limits on Click Team where you see we can add a lot more with the kind of technology we have like a decade later, because we can add in many more animations and more Easter eggs and more just content altogether. So it's much better.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's a very good optimization. So what's the best thing that's happened for you on this game? Everyone gets this question. People like it.
Honestly, meeting people, like I'm not super talkative around new people. That's like something people don't expect from me. Like, but behind the scenes, I'm not the most talkative. But being able like to see the work and how people interact with each other, and to kind of every now and then pop in. I just like seeing the process of game development from like an outside view of someone who's just been playing video games since the age of like 3 years old. It's really cool, and plus it's a FNAF game, which I love. So
Yeah, it's fun. I love doing it. It's great. And I think that your story has been going really well with it, honestly, and it's kind of been fitting. And and the original version of the demo of the game, which I don't think you ever played on your channel, I did not like it for many reasons. Like, I felt like the images were saturated and they weren't scary.
yeah,
But then I decided to, like, when I redoing the renders, I decided to take saturation off, and it just makes it seem much scarier.
yeah.
So yeah, I feel like with this new version of the game that we're working on, I feel like we can kind of redo some things that didn't really work great for us. You know?
Yeah, because there's been so many times where you've come to me and be like, well, how can we make this better? Or maybe this story beat will work or won't work, or like you bring theories to me, and it's like such a joy to like try to piece things together or say, I don't know about this one.
Yeah. I got you. So let's see what the next thing is here. What's the worst part of developing this game for you? Like, is there like a bad thing that's happened? Or no, wait.
Honestly,
Yeah.
this is gonna be the one I'm kind of nervous on saying, but some of the issues behind the scenes with things, I don't know how in depth I can go with this, but some people just, doing things they shouldn't be.
No,
And
you can elaborate on this. I was definitely elaborating on this, so yeah, you can get into this. Some of this,
So-
yeah. So I actually wanted to, because a lot of people are really interested on this subject. So feel free, go crazy. I mean, I can also cut anything out if it's like really too bad.
yeah.
But
So essentially, another thing I do behind the scenes is I try to also make sure everything is good, with the team and everything. Like, if there's an issue, I try my best to help mental handle it. And like, there's been 2 instances where it kind of got a little sketchy. Technically 3. One was when we had just a lot of people leaving at one point, and then another one was when somebody was pirating, what was it, like $150 software or whatever it was.
nah, dude, it was $1,000.
It was $1,000. I thought it was only 150, but
No. Well, actually, they pirated Click Team. They pirated Cinema 4D. They pirated FL Studio. They pirated tons of different things. Like, they're literally like felons at this point. Like, I don't like they got like bounties on their
Yeah.
head, and they pirated so much. But yeah,
yeah.
So they pirated a lot, and like thousands, like within
And-
like yeah, so tons. But
And yeah, there was that other incident with the PDF file incident where there was someone who joined, and then we got news that there's like a investigation around them going on. So like, until we got more information, we had to like wait. Like, we didn't have them work on anything
that
because
was
we wanted to know more information.
that was honestly probably like one of the scariest parts for me, because I was just like, it felt so uncomfortable, like just this guy
Yeah.
in here that like thinks that like acts like he's fine, but then really he's a weirdo, and he's just like hanging
Yeah.
out with our team, and it's just like really unsettling. And if Mr. Freddy 64 hadn't told me about that when I was just mentioned it like nicely, just like bringing up random stuff, then I don't know, we would be in a different place now.
Yeah, it's a good thing they brought it. It's just at the time it was more allegations than proof, so it's like we wanted to wait. We didn't have them work on anything, so for any viewers, don't worry, they did not touch the game in any way, shape, or form.
They did not. They literally did nothing for it, except for the only time that I had added anything of theirs to the game, I think was once that it took out, is they wanted to have their profile picture inside of the supply closet room, if I remember correctly, but we took that out. And I was just,
Yeah, no, anything that was added, it was
Yeah.
decided to remove it and not use it.
he is not in the game at all. But yeah, so what are some other bad things? Like, I remember the Blue Night days were pretty funky.
Yeah, and I don't really kind of want to flat out go out and say that that was, their fault or anything. I mean, it was kind of just more maturity issue, I think, on both ends.
On
with,
everyone's side, yeah.
Like, I was trying to be that voice of reason in the middle.
Yeah.
And that one kind of sucked because I do like Blue Knight. Dude is absolutely cool, but And this is just as in general. So Blue Knight, if you're watching this, this isn't even directed towards you, but when you're working with people who are younger and still maturing, things like that can happen. And at the end of the day, what we're doing is kind of like a business. You need what's best for the business.
Yeah, and that's how I like to look at it. And I feel like when he started to get like angry and stuff, and I feel like we would try to implement things and he just didn't like it, and he would get like pissed about it, and I feel like that kind of
Yeah.
thing, like that was why really the main reason. But I also feel like me and you got a little out of hand when we were like getting, when I got pissed at him for that one thing that he, because remember he was like trying to re-upload the game and we got like kind of bugged out. I feel like we probably could have handled that a little slower and more carefully.
Well, that had to have been handled really quickly. I think we handled that quickly and swiftly, which we should have, because if that's like re-uploading it, that's, taking your intellectual property, and that's genuine law issues at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think we had every right to be angry. I wasn't super angry. I was more trying to get things done. You were angry though.
I remember I was like flaming, and he was bugged out. I freaked him out somehow. I don't know, and he would immediately just like stop. But yeah, I was pissed because he was trying to use, I think, my FNAF movie renders and my plushie renders in it, and it was just bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I remember The Office was one of them that was going to be reused, if I remember correctly.
I remember we like settled on something. Like I remember like he said he wanted to have a Freddy hat in his office, and I said, okay, you can have the Freddy hat. I'll keep the Bonnie hat in the office. And I also settled that I was allowed to have the puppet head in my office, and he couldn't.
It was more or less the fact that like we made the deal of like you can do things, just don't flat out just like take it and put it in your game. Like you can still have things that are similar. Like at the end of the day, it's just a reimagining of FNAF. There's going to be similar aspects to other reimaginings of the FNAF games, but it's just don't just flat out take something and just throw it in your game kind of deal.
Perfect way to do it. Like that's a perfect way to say it. Like just like even what I did when I said that I wanted to have the puppet head in my game, that's from FNAF Plus if you think about it, because I remember there's a puppet head in that office, and that's fine for him to put a puppet head in the office. Just don't use my renders for the puppet head in the office, or just change it up a little bit.
Don't just copy it. It was literally just don't copy and paste our stuff and you're fine. Like that's all we wanted was just please don't copy and paste and you're good.
Yeah, essentially that was pretty much the main idea. And so, any other things that were pretty bad? Because there have been a lot of funky stuff, funky things. I'm trying to think here.
When it comes to the game, no, not really. That it's just kind of been making sure that like it's just the morale is good. Like when there's a drama or something and we have to let someone go or somebody quits or things like that. Just make sure it's like y'all don't worry. I remember there was one point where you're kind of getting like trigger happy with letting people go.
Yeah, I remember like people would come in and then they'd be jerks, and then I would just be like bye, and then they would just be like gone. And I feel like I probably could have been more careful about people leaving, because I felt like we lost a ton of people, and like when people leave, especially programmers, it's very detrimental, because because programmers are very important, because I can do a lot of different stuff, but one of the things I can't do is programming. I can do it, but I can't do it for some of the engines. Like I can't do Unity and stuff like that. But luckily we have Cheetos now, and he's been very helpful. He's been doing really good, except for he has had some in real life problems, so he has been taking a break. But yeah, so I don't know if we can think of anything else, but can you? Because we can move on to the next question.
Honestly, I would just say in terms of like just a dark moment, there have been times where I thought if I wanted to continue doing this because of like how many people were being let go or things, and sometimes over dumb reasons. And it was like, is this game going to end up creating more like hateful relationships where I may lose out on storywriting for another game for a different person because something happened with this game?
Yeah, that's a good point. I also felt like, I remember we canceled it for like a day, if you remember that.
Yeah.
Because that was a pretty rough thing, because this game was quite a while in the making. But it was mostly because, I mean, once enough people leave, your morale, like, it really gets down. because
Mm-hmm.
at the time I was really trying to keep people on it and like try to like accommodate to what they wanted, like gameplay wise, how much time they wanted to do it wise, stuff like that. But then they would just still go, and we'd be at a loss. And so then I need to go on a hunt to find someone. And then when I went on a hunt to find someone, then we hired the pedo guy. And so that kind of messed things up more, and that like shook me up, because honestly, like, you don't want to be the guy that brings that guy onto the team, because that kind of gives you a bad look. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was funky.
Yeah, that's everything I got for that question. That was a good question.
It was. We spent some time on that. I'm glad. So, the next question is: are you excited to finally finish this game? Since we are actually coming in on a close soon here, I think.
Yes and no in both ways.
Yeah.
Like, I love the game and I want to see it come to fruition, but at the same time, I want to just have every single story beat as perfect as humanly possible. That's like, I don't want it to end. It's kind of like that deal where it's like, there's gonna be things that like I noticed, you noticed, the other developers notice, where it's like, oh, we should have changed that, or oh, we should have, it's like, oh, so it's like,
Yeah.
it's gonna suck when it first releases, but I hope it's good enough, and like the story that I made was, translated well in terms of, the cutscenes and designs and the mechanics and all that stuff.
And I'm very excited to see, like, first, personally, I've been focusing a lot more on the gameplay since you deal with more of the story stuff, because I felt like early on I was trying to deal with more story content, but now I feel like I'm focusing more on how the game operates. And I feel like for gameplay wise, I feel like in the demo it was just like, I'm gonna be straight with everyone. It was just a copy of FNAF 1 with some really bright renders, and it was honestly, it was not as good as I wanted, as it could have been. So that's why I wanted to give it like a fresh coat of paint. And I decided for the last update of the game of that demo, we changed a bunch of things. Like we replaced the fan with a plushie, but it wasn't anything that special. So with the full game, I wanted to focus on like new mechanics and more animatronics or something, or more animations, something, because the game felt very like static. Like there were just so many like images everywhere. The only animation that was in that game, like that was like constantly in the game, was the fan, and everything else was essentially just a PNG.
Yeah.
So I want to have like a fresh start with this new version, and we can really switch around some things and make everything good again. And we do use some of the assets from Five Nights at Freddy's 1, because you can't really replace some things from like Five Nights at Freddy's 1, that you like the camera flip button. Like you can't find a new camera flip button, or you can't make one, because I don't know how.
And another thing is also like, this is kind of like a test game for me to kind of really start to understand how these things work too.
Yeah.
It's like, and like, who knows, maybe in the future, like once we really start getting a groove and a style and things like that, maybe we'd go back and like remaster it or something to be better.
Yeah, I definitely could see that happening, because I don't know, like there's just so many things that I feel like we won't be able to do for this particular version, because it's just not, you can't. I've trying to teach myself that you can't make this game perfect. Like I've been trying to tell myself, like I just keep telling you can't make this game perfect. You can't make this game perfect, but you can try your best to get as close to you can as that. So that's what I've been going for, But the next question is: are there any secrets that you would like to share with us?
I'd say pay close attention to the story if you are like a story buff.
Yeah.
Pay attention to a certain book. A certain book will be appearing, and nightmares are gonna play a big role, and spirits are gonna play a big role. So.
Yeah.
So, and technically 2 books are gonna play a role, but like one of them doesn't flat out happen and more takes like concept from the book more than anything. So I'd say just kind of pay attention, and you'll be able to piece things. It's gonna be kind of confusing, and if you really want to get into it, watch my YouTube videos.
Yes, good idea. And also you gotta pay close attention to some of these the cutscenes explain it are gonna try to do their best to give you hints on what it is, but you gotta use your brain to like really think about what all this stuff means, because like I said, it's like, or like Nero Raven said and I said, it's like FNAF 1, but we've expanded and we've added and we've made things easier to understand, but it doesn't mean that it's the easiest to understand.
You know, when I think about it, it's more or less like, you know how Scott like didn't have a story plan to like FNAF 4 sister location, really?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, what if he did have that plan starting from FNAF 1, essentially?
That's a great way to put it, because that's kind of, you know, if only he did, it would be a completely different thing.
Oh, it would have been a completely different pathway of the games than what we saw and hints and things. It would be so different.
And we're gonna try to go for that with these games, and if we can make everything perfect, then we'll go for it. But obviously, we can't make everything just how we want it to be, because we're not capable of that yet. But we will try our best.
Yep. So just, you know, give us feedback when this game does release. Give us feedback. But as I always say, please do keep it kind, calm, and respectful. Because one, this is like our first ever kind of project like this, and we're gonna be getting better through time, and plus any constructive feedback will help us make, you know, further games like 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth, so much better.
Yeah, definitely. I think that also this idea of this game alone could really help the idea of the rest of the games like forge better, because if this one game is built with the same idea that it could mold in with the rest, then you could just technically play this, then you could play all the rest of them, and you'd have the same idea line and the main line just going together, and it would all mold together perfectly, and you wouldn't have to like hunt around trying to figure it out externally. Like, you don't have to go on YouTube, and you don't have to go on all that. You can just figure it out yourself in the game, because the games will explain it for you, because it just, you know what I mean?
You know, I just thought of something. I'm just gonna go back to a question real quick. I also want to say this, a fear of mine that I have with this is, what if something that we think is like pretty canon or pretty solidified like gets disproven
That
in
would
like
God.
a future game or book, and then it's like, oh no, well, that was like a major story beat in like one of our games. That's a problem.
Yeah, imagine that would be horrible. Like, imagine it's just like making the game and it's just like, yeah, Freddy doesn't exist. What? Like things like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. But hopefully this game, because you know, I'm just gonna say this right now for anyone, is the lore in this game will become outdated. Like, eventually it will be to a point where there's so much more official content that helps elaborate on what it actually is, that our little hints and secrets are gonna be like useless, because they won't explain anything compared to what you may already have. But for now, this should be a pretty good placeholder, I think. And I also, like, I was excited because I was thinking that we could add things like DLCs, as I've talked about before. Like, we could add things where you could maybe replace different animatronics with different things, or you could add like haunted mode or like something. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and I think that would be fun. And what else would be fun? And this is just me throwing it out there. Like, this has not been in talks at all. But like a Halloween update where like we just change the models to look like just Halloween versions of them, I think would be so cool.
I was planning on that, actually. Like, I'm just gonna leak it right now. I was actually planning to do a whole Halloween DLC where we just take the entire game with a Halloween reskin. Because in the original Five Nights at Freddy's, there's actually a Halloween mode, but it only runs on October 31st. But for this version, you'd just be able to download it as a separate package, probably, like, because it would be such a big game, it would work that way.
I think it would be cool if we did like, you know, like made like Dreadbear for Freddy, but just made like look more like Freddy Fazbear. You know, like Foxy with like his, you know, pirate coat on and the pirate hat that he has in Help Wanted 1. And I don't know, we'll figure something out for buying too. Maybe we'll just make them like the Jacko versions or something.
Yeah, I actually saw the originals in the Jacko form, and there's some models you can get. I saw them on Twitter, I think. So maybe
yeah, I think that would be a really cool idea to do. And you know, what would be really funny is if we did like a Christmas one and we got like Santa Freddy.
That's a great idea, actually. That would be so. Yeah, and then the 4th of July update, and you just got the celebrator.
Like, you have the models from FNAF AR.
Yeah, and like literally, people have just ripped them out of like Help Wanted. Like, you can actually get the official models. I don't even know how that's legal, but still. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, there's not really any other questions left, so I guess we'll just wrap it up
I think
here.
you cut out again.
Oh shoot, sorry. Gosh, I keep cutting out. I have it on press to speak because I've got some stuff going on out here and it's like kind of like noisy. But anyway, I'll just put it on max mode now because it's really quiet all of a sudden. So like at this point in the interview, like I have it like there's literally just vibing. I just wrote it down like vibing. Like I don't know if you want to like just talk about some random thing for the game, like a tell-all thing, or you want to just wrap it up. You know, you tell me and we can figure it out.
You know, this is just, there's two things, and I've been parading this around behind the scenes with my friends and YouTube buddies and things like that. Technically three things. It has nothing to do with the games, really. It more has to do with the community, in a way.
Yeah.
I am making some videos, and this is kind of like self-promo, but also not. It's kind of like gonna transfer into a message, and it's gonna talk about the FNAF community and canonicities and the books in the games and things like that. And one thing that I've noticed, and some other YouTubers I've spoken to behind the scenes have also noticed, is that people take theories really seriously and make sure that's like, no, this is canon, or like this is just how it is, when sometimes it's like it's just a theory. Like I always use, for example, like William Afton's name being William Afton was a theory from MatPat that became canon, but other theories like Foxy being friendly was a theory that was proven to be not canon, wasn't true. And I feel like with things like Molten MCI, or the books being canon to the games, or vice versa, the books not being canon to the games, I feel that like every side is guilty of this, and I kind of want to say that like be kind of chill with these things, have an open mind to it, because like yes, Molten MCI for example, very good theory, but have an open mind. So when you do play the game and you have a certain, like you think Golden Freddy is Andrew, or you think Golden Freddy is Cassidy, just have an open mind. You know, it's not gonna be your perfect universe. It's not gonna be exactly what you believe in FNAF. And
Yeah.
I think to give like a constructive criticism or constructive feedback in a kind way, in a calm way, is the best way to do it, instead of like what's happened to me and other YouTubers with, you know, insults or just flat out saying this video sucks. It's like, okay, it sucks, but why?
Yeah. Like why? Like it's a determining factor. It's just about how you look at it. Like, you could say that everything that they say is just right, or you could say how it's just right in your head. And like either way, honestly, it's just do you, kind of. Or you can try to make like a base that everyone can kind of run off of, which I think is probably the best idea. You know, because like
Yeah.
you can either do just your idea of what it could be, or you could have a wide base of what everyone's idea for it could be, and anyone can run off that idea and have it be just fine.
Also, I'm also just gonna say this with Cassidy and Andrew. You could literally just replace Cassidy with Andrew or vice versa, and literally nothing about the story of FNAF really changes, like at all.
Yeah, maybe they're the
Like
same.
that's another thing I tell people. Like they are so similar that like, okay, Andrew and Cassidy were both in a Golden Freddy suit at some point, and they both possessed it, and either one or the other causes ultimate custom night. Either or, it's like nothing really changes about the story. It's just who is it at the end of the day, and then basically it's what happens after ultimate custom night. Does that vengeful spirit, if it's Andrew, go back to Stitch Wraith
Yeah.
and do its thing, or is it Cassidy, and Cassidy has enough and has your own happiest day?
Yeah, like it's just about how you just look at it, you know. Like you gotta, yeah, it's all about honestly what pieces together best and what most people can agree on. But sometimes if everyone agrees on something, you gotta kind of break it. You gotta kind of like break the chain if it's like a bad theory, and you gotta fix it with like the right theory, you know.
You know, I'm gonna say this might get me in trouble in the future if I ever become big, but I'm just gonna put this out there.
You're so
I don't know,
Oh.
I don't know who was a part of all of this. But I heard about it. I didn't watch the video, but I heard something. I think it was like FNAF and ID's Fantasy. or something like that, and they essentially just like caved in. Was like, yeah, no, like the books are 100% canon to the games, and it's like, how can you know that right now?
Yeah.
It's like I feel, and maybe I'm wrong. Obviously, I don't speak to them, so there's a very good chance I'm wrong. This is just my speculation from an outside view. So don't take anything I say. By the way, there's no hate towards them. I absolutely love them. I love their content and them as people. They are amazing from what I know. But I feel like with that they just kind of had enough people saying, "Oh, it's Andrew," or "Oh, it's this thing from the book that, has murky evidence for it being in the games and stuff," and they just like had enough and like caved in or something.
Yeah.
And if I am wrong on this and I do become big and I do get to talk to them, I will most certainly be coming back on this if it gains traction, this little clip here, and I will definitely be correcting myself. But it's just my, point of view from an outside view, and that's kind of my only issue with bigger YouTubers is I feel sometimes they listen to the community too hard instead of trying to piece together FNAF.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I got you. I feel like, yeah, it's just about how you look at it, really. Like, you gotta kind of like think about it for a little while, and just think about how it works.
And with the bigger YouTubers, I'd still love to work with them, and I'd still love to one day get to meet them and know them, as people and not a YouTuber. I'd love to get to meet them and things like that, because
Of course. Yeah.
at the end of the day, even if I don't agree with the theories they make or the things that they're going towards with theories in the future, at the end of the day, FNAF can be interpreted in so many ways that, like, even if it's something I don't agree with or something that I don't see happening, it doesn't mean like they're dumb or they're wrong. It's just their interpretation of it. And that's another thing I see happen is like people just like, oh, no, like the Henry speech means this exactly. And it's like, that's your interpretation of it. My interpretation could be different from yours.
Of course. Yeah, like
I think you forgot to put press the talk on.
Oh
again.
my, I did it again. I'm gonna have to cut off these weird pause parts where I'm just like don't talk for like 50 seconds. Okay, so we're gonna like uncut it in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, I get what you mean. That's a good point. Yeah, I think that it's really, I think that everyone needs to just come to like an agreement on something and stick to it and just keep building off that, if that makes sense.
And one thing I've been doing to people behind the scenes, like if I talk to them or whatever and we get into a debate about the books, I tell them I can see both sides. However, here's my issue with it. I have 2 issues. One is how a multiverse can work. So we know there's a multiverse of FNAF, and we got the FNAF fanverse. I mean, we have the Silver Eyes trilogy, which is its own universe, obviously. Things like that, right? And
Yeah.
how I see it is like how Miguel O'Hara explains a multiverse and Across the Spider-Verse, in which, like, yeah, multiple Peter Parkers can lose Uncle Ben, but that doesn't mean every Peter Parker is in the same universe.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we can have William Afton in the books, or we can have Golden Freddy in the books, or we can have the Mimic in the games, but that doesn't mean it's the exact Mimic from the books, or it's the exact William Afton from the games. They can transfer, but it doesn't mean it's flat out canon to their universes. And the other issue I have is, well, the new Into the Pit game. I've said this, and I am so confident in this. I want people to tell me right now, if you're at this point in the interview, if you watch this long, first off, thank you. Secondly, where in the Into the Pit story in the book do you save 5 kids? Where does that happen? Like, there's so many things in that game that just don't happen in the books, where I'm just gonna say, I feel like the books are their own universe, but then the books that are transferred into games might be canon to the games.
In my opinion, for the books, I feel like this is it for a lot of people, but I feel like certain things in the books transcribe to the games, but I feel like it's just such small things that it just feels like it makes the books kind of like, why does this exist if it's just a small thing? Like, I kind of feel like the twisted ones exist just to teach you about illusion discs and that weird like vomit sound or whatever, but then like, why would they write that entire book just to convey that one message that could probably be in like a game? So it just kind of gets you thinking, like, that's a little And then the Silver Eyes might have been there just to explain about how William is William, but that's kind of fair, honestly. And the Fourth Closet might have been also to explain more about the fun times and the illusion discs. But it's just really, I don't know, it's still kind of up in the air for me.
It's like, more for me, Silver Eyes is gonna be its own universe.
Yeah.
That, can teach us things, but like Fazbear Frights and Tales, I feel those are gonna stay their own universe, but like the stories that are made from book to games, the games of the book that have like the changes and things might be canon to the games, because I've been working behind the scenes. I've talked with other YouTubers, and like they've helped me kind of piece together a pseudo timeline for if what we know from the Into the Pit game. So that would be Into the Pit, Fetch, Count the Ways, To Be Beautiful, and Kids at Play, where they would take place in the timeline, and where Into the Pit happens too.
Of course.
And the thing I discovered, and I'll just flat out say this, if that is the case, the books do not impact the games, but the games impact the books. And essentially, it's the consequences of the games that we don't see.
Interesting.
And there were some interesting things that I found and were able to piece together. Pay attention to Fetch, and pay attention to the mill. Those are the two locations where pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And the Ghost Kids.
Is that
because
yeah.
I think there's something interesting with that.
What is Fazgoo's canonicity then?
So far, I haven't seen any evidence of it in Into the Pits game. So as of right now, that's still, I'm gonna say, not canon for the time being. But like, let's say if and when, because Scott said he did want the Fetch game to come, if and when we do get that, there is evidence of Fazgoo, then that would be something I'd look more into. Essentially, it's kind of like things that we've seen, that were in the Into the Pit game, that I'm gonna be more focusing on than like something that we just haven't had hints at. Stitch Wraith is another one, actually. I do have the theory scripted out and everything, and when I explain how Stitch Wraith is gonna work, if Stitch Wraith is in the games, people are gonna hate me.
Oh god.
People are gonna absolutely hate me, because the Into the Pit game shuts down so many aspects of Stitch Wraith and Andrew and Jake that it's gonna be controversial, to say the least. People are not gonna like it.
Yeah, I feel like if the Stitch Wraith is gonna be a game, I feel like it would be awesome in Dead by Daylight.
Honestly, I feel like, speaking of Dead by Daylight and FNAF, I've been playing Dead by Daylight since it released. There have been times where I even boycotted Dead by Daylight until FNAF was added.
What the heck? That's hilarious.
Now, of course, that only would last for like 2 years at most, but
yeah.
God, I'm so hyped for that. That when that happens, I'm going to be doing so many videos on it. You already know.
I'll be in college by then. I'm just kidding. I mean, it'll be like years. I don't even know. How long ago? How long was it again? Like a year?
It's going to be summer of next year.
Holy, that's a long time away.
I mean, it's only a year though, if you think. And the thing is, like, they're just starting to work on it, because as someone who's in the realm of Dead by Daylight, it takes them about a year to develop a character. So they're like just starting on it, essentially. Maybe they've been working on it for like a month or two, but like they're in very early development of it.
Oh. Alright. I thought honestly, I kind of thought they had already started by the time they made the announcement.
No, I think it was something that was maybe planned like back in, I don't know, July to May, maybe.
Dang. That was a while ago. Well, I guess actually it wasn't that far. Kind of feels like it, honestly. I don't know.
Oh yeah, time flies sometimes. And plus another thing, when you're making videos and you're doing it on a schedule, sometimes it's like you're sitting on so many videos and you're waiting for them to release, so that, and it's just kind of like it just flies by so quick.
Yeah. Yeah, gotcha. Well, anyway, see, I think that that's literally like every question that was asked. And like,
I think you messed up your push to talk again.
Okay, I did it again. we're gonna cut it, and I'm gonna start talking again in 3 seconds, and then we'll start it from there. Okay? 3.
Yep.
2. So I think that we have anything that you want to answer, because we've pretty much gone up everything on the list. If there's anything that you can think of that you want to address, or are we all set?
Honestly, just dear FNAF community, remember, as Matt Pat said, it's just a theory, and well, for this instance, it's just a game.
That's a perfect way to put it, honestly. Yeah. Alright. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this particular interview. Tomorrow, another one will be out, which is with another team member, and that one will be exclusive, and then we'll see how this series goes from then. Please like and subscribe to Nero Raven on YouTube, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Peace.